Rex is in the house, and we're going to talk about Alien Romulus, which is kind of interesting because we had our little Alien versus Aliens 2 conversation, Alien versus Aliens conversation last time, I think, or one of the times we talked previously. So I think it'd be kind of fun to get our perspectives on Romulus as well, because
We did, which was the
yeah,
better movie, and we
yeah,
both
and we
agreed that you can't compare them.
they're apples and oranges. They're
Yeah.
both great on their own merits, and people that try to compare them, I think, are comparing two different genres, and it's not fair. It's like is a Lord of the Rings movie better than Halloween or something? It's like what are you
Yeah.
doing? Like that doesn't even So Alien Romulus for me was rough out of the gate. I have to admit, I'm an uber nerd with aliens. I
Mhm.
had a hard time because I loved the look, the feel, the music, the world that I was in the beginning of the movie. Except that they cast a whole bunch of teenagers. I was still waiting for adults to show up in this story at some point. I felt like I'm watching the employees of Hot Topic who've been
Mhm.
put into a xenomorph adventure. They never ever felt like they could hold their own in a physical military type of conflict. In the other movies, I dealt with these explorers that were, you know, on the Nostromo. They all felt like they were, you know what I mean? And then the Colonial Marines, of course. Then I had the prisoners. Then I had bounty hunters and the other. So I always felt like the people that were in these situations were believable that they could hold their own. And in this movie, I never really got that. So right out of the gate, I admitted I was struggling with the film, not even on merit, just on casting of like, I don't feel like these kids would survive. Like I'm having a hard time. Um, the other issue right out of the gate, I would tell you that I had, because I enjoyed the movie pretty well until like about an hour in.
Okay.
The only other issue I think I had a really big problem with was just the whole concept. I mentioned the Nostromo, and it seemed like they knew a lot of information, but they're setting the movie before Aliens, which means they haven't found Ripley yet.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm still trying to figure out how they would know where to go to get the stuff. How do they know all this? Like they don't. How would they know what happened to the Nostromo? They didn't find Ripley yet. And then when the alien is there and it's got the hook in it, I was like ticked off. I've just so again all of that. Now,
Mhm.
based on your review though,
Mhm.
uh, where you feel you agree with me? Okay, on the first part of the movie, the first half of the movie, at least we can agree that all the things. I think they hit all those beats pretty well. Otherwise.
I spent more time criticizing Alien Romulus in my positive review than
Yes.
positively reviewing it. But a lot of people seem to, oh, well, you liked Alien Romulus. I'm like,
I
I
know.
showed
I know
you.
you did. I know you
Right.
did. I know. I listen. I wasn't. I didn't bag on you. I was just like, wait, we
No, no,
did. We do have some. Um.
and I appreciate that. I agree with you. I thought the first half was pretty good. It sets up kind of. I like that we see the Wayland Yutani Corporation a
Mhm.
little bit more because previous films we don't really explore that, right? We could say Prometheus and Covenant did, but those movies are god awful, and I really don't count them for anything in the Alien
I
universe.
I know you know what you're talking about. I'm not watching that movie ever again.
Yeah, there you go. Oh well, I'm gonna be watching Covenant again in December just to
You're
torture the
nuts.
MMM panel.
It's
So,
awful.
um, but it's there's a couple. So the Nostromo thing. Okay, hold on. I'll start with the casting. I actually get where you're coming with the casting. I could in the first half of the movie, I could almost forgive it
Hmm.
because the way that they were setting it up, it was like these aren't people that just came here from Earth. These are
Hmm.
people that were born here. So they're born into this role and there's really nothing else. So the likelihood is that they probably started working at a pretty young age.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the way I interpreted it. So like I could forgive why they were young, but that didn't excuse a lot of their actions and behaviors. Um, Hold on, the Nostromo. So this is where video game logic comes in. There was a game a decade ago called Alien Isolation. Phenomenal game. It's and that should have been this movie, but anyways. So Alien Isolation in that film, it is Ripley's daughter, Amanda Ripley. She finds the black box or whatever from the Nostromo. They manage to find it kind of floating in space. And she catches word of this and she's like, I need some closure on my mother's death because they had this also takes place before the events of Aliens, right? So they haven't found Ripley's pod. So she goes to listen to the box, and then it just kind of devolves into some craziness because a xenomorph gets involved in all of that. So a lot of just outside of like the background props and stuff, I can tell that Fede Alvarez took a lot of inspiration from Alien Isolation and like developing the tone and atmosphere and even some of just like the narrative elements that he chooses to carry through. The movie would have been a lot better if it were just a straight adaptation. The inclusion of the Prometheus goo lore and all of that, and then the final, the hybrid that we get at the end, which I didn't mind that design. I thought it was kind of cool. But the way it comes about, because the movie basically switches into a totally different
Yeah, I
film
was
at the
going to say
halfway
once you
point.
get to the Prometheus goo, the callback to Prometheus,
Yeah.
that's when I think it might have happened right before then. So there's two moments that happened right before then where I started checking out, or at least started doing the cringe in my seat.
Hmm.
One of the boys, and they're boys to me. I know they're supposed to be young adults, but they look like young men. They're boys.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
falls down the metal ladder, like into the hole. I don't know what to call these little chutes that they're in this ship. This isn't slipping off a 6 foot ladder. This is falling onto the metal, and he gets up without any. He didn't limp. He
Yep.
didn't. Would have broke his back. Like I was taking like it was absurd that they would have him fall so far. I don't know why you needed to have him fall so far. I know it sounds silly, but it's moments like that that take me completely out of the moment for a minute because I'm
Hmm.
like, wait, if we're going to be that careless with the detail, and then it was quickly after that is when the explosions and problems with the ship was happening, where they're kind of spinning around, and I started to lose my frame of reference because they hadn't given us another perspective shot or something about where we
Hmm.
are with everything happening, and
Hmm.
I started to get that unnerving feeling in my soul where I'm like, oh, we're losing the script a little bit. And
Hmm.
then we got to the Prometheus thing. And that to me is when the train kind of went off the tracks a little bit. And then we went
Yeah.
down the rabbit hole with a bunch of Prometheus callbacks. And the hybrid stuff started to get really weird. And then at the end, I have to just disagree that I hated the hybrid thing. I just thought the whole birth mother hybrid stuff was just I don't know.
Oh,
And
I just thought the design was cool. I didn't like
okay,
how they
okay.
introduced it.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't like any of that. I was checked out by then for sure. So
That's totally fair because I agree with you. Because then it was just trying to be like, "Oh, now this is no longer Rain, like, kind of a new character. Now we're just trying to basically emulate what we've seen Ripley do time and time
mhm.
again in a film," and it no longer felt like it was, like, a bit of a it no longer felt like an addition, it felt like a rehashing, right? That entire final act. Um, the the hallway scene with the face huggers where they're just like, "Oh, we gotta like increase the temperature in the room," and
Mhm.
they've got only like 45 minutes to get to the other side of the ship.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where it started to
It's all
completely
about
go.
the same time we're talking about. We're in
It
that
is.
just
It's
that
right before the lab scene. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So it's that's when this thing starts to just really get really out of the lane. And I don't know about this one. I want to throw a theory by you with this.
Mhm.
I almost feel like he's going to come out at some point and talk about how the studio messed it up.
So I have it on good authority that Ridley Scott was actually heavily involved in the script, and he was on set, and there's a lot of things that were supposed to happen because Ridley wanted them to happen that even the studio executives were like, "Are you insane? We can't do that on camera. We can't put that in a movie." Um, and it also explains why the movie does a complete switch at the halfway point. It explains why the ending monster is so sloppy. It explains why none of the characters actually get a character arc aside from maybe Andy, the android.
Is that the robot? I want to call him
Yeah.
Fred, but because the black dude in the human show is called Fred, and I'm like, I always think of it as the same. It's pretty much the exact same. It's the only character that you really love. It's like he's the only actor I thought just hit a really hit
Oh,
at least hit the
100%.
ball. Like he actually was just, and there were parts where he's like playing like this version of Andy. I mean, he did well.
Yeah,
Uh, Rain was so unbelievable as this like 16-year-old version of a Ripley. It was just not.
I
I
agree.
just I don't get Hollywood's obsession with not just girl bosses, Mary Sue's, and having female heroes. It's we're getting like children versions of women. We're not getting women. We're getting like these witchy children version of women that we're supposed to take seriously for no reason other than they just tell us we're supposed to take them seriously. Ripley was like a boss on the ship. It was like her talking with Dallas. It was like her going to in the face of Kane. She was the one talking to the computer. Like she was significant from the get-go.
Yep.
So it made a lot of sense. Rain is like a tag along in a lot of ways. Like she's just not. It was like we're just picking her because, and you know what I mean. Like I said, I go back
Yeah.
to the Hot Topic analogy because I don't feel like she'd be the character that would have survived that, other
Mhm.
than just luck.
And I,
Um,
I I do feel this is where again the Ridley Scott element comes in, because if you take out all the Prometheus stuff, if you take out the hybrid element,
okay.
then you would have gotten a movie that focuses just on Rain and how she is overcoming this pretty terrifying situation she's in. Because
Well,
we have to include all of this Prometheus stuff, that means that you have to now incorporate it in the big finale of your movie. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense to include it whatsoever.
okay.
Because so there, okay, here's what I've heard from a reliable individual. There was supposed to be an engineer on that ship.
Okay.
So
So
that would
why are we? I'm sorry, rhetorical question. We used to make movies where we'd send the script in and then it would get approved and then we would film it. And we hear stories like this
Mhm.
and you're like, how did we end up here? How did we end up where you people thought this was a good enough idea and then you revert and then you change and then we end up with this hybrid mess of a movie? Ah, just
I
freaking
think this is just studio interference, and like I'm kind of hoping that in like 4 or 5 years maybe, Fede Alvarez will just kind of be like he'll have another movie come out and they'll talk about Alien Romulus, and she's like, yeah, like there was this idea that I really just wanted to have this and this happen, and we'll get the trickle down, right? And I know this is really harsh to say, but I'm going to say it anyways. Because I enjoyed Alien Romulus, faults and all, right? Like, I admit there's a lot of things it does wrong. A lot of things it does wrong. But I just, especially in that first half, I enjoy where it was trying to go. I can appreciate what it was trying to do. But the only chance we're going to get at having a solid Alien movie is if Ridley Scott dies.
Mm, yeah.
Because he is just so he's so up his own ass with this. The Prometheus stuff was terrible. I honestly would have rather I kind of would have part of me would have rather have seen a sequel to Covenant. I want to see what he would have done with that third one, cuz as horrible as everything was in those two movies, I really liked the David 8 narrative. I really liked Michael Fassbender's character. I thought that was an interesting way of approaching the what happens when your android kind of evolves past tasks and gains a bit of consciousness and then ends up acting on those consciousnesses.
Mm,
That like I really did enjoy that, even if it was kind of stupid that he goes and like he tries to what was her name? Holloway. He tries to not Holloway. Oh my god. The
it's fine.
woman from
I don't.
Prometheus, right?
I deleted it.
Yeah, it's
It's
like it's implied that he tried to mate with her
yeah.
against her
Numi
will.
Rapace's character. Yeah.
Exactly. Like that's silly. It's just like him developing sexual tendencies of any kind was kind of weird, because that doesn't factor into like the experimentation part that he was doing. So I kind of would have liked to see a as terrible as it was going to be, just for the android. Just for the android, I would have liked to see that. Um but I hope they don't make a sequel to Romulus. I know there's banter because it's doing so well at the box office and it's gotten a lot of positive buzz.
Mm,
I don't want there to be a sequel to this because it's just going to be messy. There's also, I don't know if you've read or seen some of the Easter eggs that Fede Alvarez has put in there. So in the opening title sequence, when Romulus pops up on the screen, there's a small object that you see kind of drift in the background. That's supposed to be Ripley's pod,
whoa. All right. I'll take your word
which
on it.
doesn't make sense. Like
Uh,
according to Fede Alvarez, that's and I'm just like,
yeah.
oh god, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What? Come on.
So the throw my arms in the air
Mhm.
and stuff moment was dodging the acid and the zero gravity and then using the gun to push themselves away from the acid into the so I feel like there could be a salvageable movie in there because I did get about an hour of really good stuff, and I wondered if there's
Yes.
enough that I could cut out and around and readjust it around and get a short movie, like an 80-minute movie out of it. I don't
Mhm.
know for sure, but I probably could. Um, and I feel bad for Alvarez because I feel like if the first half of the movie represents his vision and his love for the Alien franchise, 'cause that's what I've heard as well. I feel bad for him because whether it's Scott, studio, or his own misgivings, the last half of the movie, if he could figure out how to have avoided that or not done all that, I probably would have been into the good, if not great, camp. But I just can't. I thought this movie turned into a dog crap mess because of that. But that's why I want to talk to you about it. Tell me a little
No,
bit more on the toleration of. I don't think we agree as much as it would seem like we disagree because I think you're willing to acknowledge the film's faults and you know still
I can
enjoying it
inject.
despite those
Yeah,
things. Yeah.
I think the only thing that really elevates my, because like I give it about a 6 out of 10. Okay, objectively, it's like a 3.5, 4 out
Oh,
of
I was
10.
going to say, yeah, I was going to say 2 out of 5. So we're not
Yeah,
really that far apart. I
we're
do a
not.
5 point scale. So yeah, 4 out of 10, I guess is kind of me. It's like, that's not rewatchable.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's also not something I'm going to really go out of my way to watch again or anything.
right. But like the only thing that elevates it to a 6 for me is I really think the theater experience was worth it. It
Hmm.
had been a very long time since I'd gone and seen a movie in the theater where actually it wasn't that long because I went and saw Dune 2 in IMAX. But since then, it was like it felt like it was just an amazing theater experience. That's really all it is. The sound editing was so spectacular. Seeing it on a big screen, especially just that first half where we see all the cool space
Hmm.
shots and everything. It was just I could feel everything the movie was trying to get across, even if it wasn't coming across in the best way possible, right? So I
Yeah.
had it's the entertainment value, I guess you could say, that elevates my rating of the movie a little bit more. But if I had probably watched this just on my TV at home, I'd probably sit closer to your score. Yeah,
I think
four,
it's what's going
four
to
to
happen
five.
when if you watch it again. I think it's where you're going to be. You'll be like, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, it's a little
I
closer to
wa-
that.
I
Yeah.
watched a bootleg copy
Yeah.
because like I watched it first. I'm just like, okay, I need to watch this again before I put out my review.
Hmm.
So I watched a bootleg copy, and then that's where all the issues started to come out. And I was like, oh, I would not like. I knew first, and I told other people, I'm just like, listen, it's not a good movie, but you're gonna kind of regret not seeing it on a big screen. It is a treat to see in a theater. It really
Especially
is.
like again, I mean, look, I got my timeline issues and reference issues. I got saturate. I got all that stuff that's happening in that first hour, but I'm
Hmm.
actually still having a good time, and I feel like I'm in an alien movie, so I totally relate to that.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, I think it's you said it all right. I think we're good there. I think I have to put it down near the bottom though. It's not something I'm going to be
That's
rewatching.
fine. It's
Um,
better than Prometheus and Covenant, at least. I'll give it that.
And see, I have a little soft spot for Prometheus because the effects are so good, and I had a theatrical experience like you had with this movie, where you enjoy the theatrical part. So it gets a little bit of that nudge to the 2.5 for me. So it becomes more like I could watch it again. It's not the worst thing in the world. Like it wouldn't be like rushing to turn Prometheus off, even though
Mhm.
I hate the end of the movie and stuff. But especially the early parts of the movie too, I'm like, it's not the worst. But I'm not watching Covenant again. I'm not watching this. I don't plan on watching Romulus again anytime soon. I tried
Yeah.
to watch Resurrection again. I was having a miserable time.
Mhm.
Um, 3, I'm a lot more forgiving than most people again because I think it's just kind of a muddled studios and some of their that kind of thing. So it fits in that same 2.5. It's in that it and Prometheus are the two. It's like, yeah, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if I watched them again, but I'm not going to watch them again, kind of thing. Is how I feel
I
about them.
gotcha. Yeah, that's kinda how I feel like Romulus, like, if it's on TV, I might watch it, but
Yeah,
I'm not gonna go out of my way
yeah,
to invest time. But Covenant,
yeah.
that's a hard
You're
movie
just
to
being
get on.
cruel at that point. I mean, like, I notice that wouldn't be a week that I'm going to be asked to be on. That's for sure.
It's
Because I'd be
I
like,
mean,
no, no, thanks. I
would
get
you
asked to be on shows sometimes, folks, and I'm just like, not watching that.
you should
Not
you should
watching.
really come join us for I think you would be a great addition for Alien
I
Covenant.
hate that movie so much. I hate nearly every, like you said. There's a couple redeeming ideas. Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah,
it.
that's about it.
Not even
I'm
executed well, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't manifest the way he thinks it did.
Yeah. No, I
Yeah.
genuinely think when Ridley Scott dies, that's when we'll get a decent Alien movie because
I
it just increasingly.
I can only agree with you if Disney didn't own it. I don't know that I have faith, so we'll see.
Yeah.
I I'm with you. I think it's heads up his butt. I've said this for many years. I'm not as huge a Ridley Scott fan as I would have been the early part of his career. They
Mhm.
get too big that no one in the room says no to them. They're like spoiled children. They get their way,
Mhm.
and it's a mess. A little bit of the James Cameron syndrome as well, like a lot of Cameron stuff too. It's like, yeah, they're just spoiled children. No one tells them no, and they just get away with
I'm
doing things that someone in the room should be able to tell them and wrangle them in. Like, hey, not that
mhm.
doesn't work. So
I'm wondering if you agree on this point because I've heard people mention this a couple times. The reason like Ridley like directors specifically like James Cameron and Ridley Scott kind of grew to prominence is that they took a niche idea and they made it flourish really nicely on a tiny budget.
correct,
And I'm
hundred
wondering
percent,
if it's just yeah, now you get to,
hundred
"Oh,
percent.
you did a great job, so we're just
Mhm.
gonna throw money
Yeah,
at you." And then
T2 is the only exception, right? Because
Mhm,
T2 he got a lot of money and it was really good, right?
mhm,
But Cameron, we actually did a talk hard on Terminator recently. We talked a little bit about this. People think of it, it is a. I mean, the budget ended up being like $6 million, which was a lot for that era in a way, but it was
mhm,
not for a massive sci-fi film like that because they had massive models and stuff. I didn't even know at the time they had used models for certain things. He got all this money, got to do Aliens, and he was massively successful with Aliens, and then he got to do T2 later on.
mhm,
Uh, but no, I think this era of why I love my little Nexus era because some of these things are just they were forced into creativity because they had no money,
mhm,
right? Halloween, he had so little money, Jamie Lee Curtis had to buy her own clothes.
mm,
You know what I mean? We had to go to the Halloween store to take a James Captain Kirk mask and make it into Michael Myers mask. You know what I mean? We didn't have a production and costume creative
yeah,
department or something, right? So a lot of this stuff is birthed out of that indie filmmaking. Even though studios were being involved, they were still indie projects. So let's face it, these things were not paying the bills at the time, so they didn't care. They would take risks and stuff like that. And now the corporations control, and there's so much different with how they're run now. There's a great TV show on Max. I think it's on Max, Paramount or Max. It's called The Offer. It's about how they made Godfather. It'll really open your eyes about how Bob Evans just was this guy who would say, yes, no, screw you. This is how it works. Fighting with the bank, fighting over money, fighting over casting. And it's like, it is not 100% historically accurate. And it does
mhm,
have this little female agenda, but she's a real lady who did have that real prominence. So I kind of push back because she died. We don't really get all of her story. So I have to give them a little creative liberty because I don't know where the truth begins and ends when all these people have passed away.
mhm, mhm,
Um, but you get a good look. And I had, again, firsthand knowledge, have interviewed, talked to people over the years, grew up with this stuff. That is a lot of how this crap works. He wants this person in the movie because that's who he's banging right now. Oh, this person can't be in the movie because he banged my wife, right? I mean, it's literally the curtain goes back a little bit on how things operate. The show,
mhm,
if you take the show as that and not just what it, just not, it really is an eye opener of how studio crap works, especially when you go backwards and you start to understand cinema history and how some of this stuff. It's fascinating, especially with
mhm,
big, especially with the lightning in the I call them the lightning in the bottle projects, like
mhm,
Terminator or Alien and Aliens, and they're just kind of like that. There's always these stories of like, if it wasn't for this writer and that he got on a plane to meet H.R. Geiger and try to how did they just? I mean, it was just what in the '70s, dude got on a plane and went. That is freaking cool as all get out.
yeah,
No one's doing this crap today. No one is, so that's and again, the Crow, right? Did the Crow become magical? Because no, these are scenes directly out of the comic book. They're not in order. It's hard
mhm,
to point people to that. You've read the special edition, so you see, oh, it took like the ninth issue. This is this one scene, and then issue 12 is this one scene, and it's like he knew how to keep the pieces pure enough. And then when you have the tragedy, they're like, I can't lose control of my vision here. I can't lose
mhm,
control of the feel. I can't adapt it right now, but I can keep the feel of all of this for an experience.
yeah,
And they've never been able to capture it again. They just can't get their finger on the pulse. And now studios are involved and network. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how we reverse course, but there'll be another Steven Soderbergh. There'll be someone who does kind of what we've talked about through the multitude of conversations that we've had, who'll do this. I did it $500,000 on a digital phone and
Mhm.
used AI and I did this and put it out there and people are like, holy crap, like the next Blair Witch Project or the next Saw movie or something. And
Mhm.
next thing you know, we're due for that. We're due for that for sure.
I think it's just because the studios are starting to notice this, right? Like as consumers, the best thing we can do is just reward good product. There you
Correct.
go. Because it is the market is cornered. There's really not much else for us. Like Daily Wire's making movies now, but they're their own set of propaganda and stuff. Like I watched I watched Lady Ballers and I watched Mr. Bircham, and I'm just like, this is woke. You've put your political ideology at the front of this, but it just happens to be opposite to what everyone hates. So I'm
Yeah.
supposed to love it, instead of building an actual
It's a
like
it's a
interesting
it's a
character.
hobby for them because they're not even putting them out on a regular schedule. It's not like they actually have like a production plan and
Yeah,
schedule. Angel Studios is probably our best indie
so far,
studio
yeah.
like that has come out of nowhere because there's A24 and some of those that were established or they have established people running them, but
Mhm,
Angel Studios is and I will give Angel Studios credit too. As far as I can tell, I did a little video on Sweetwater, which is not a great movie, but I
mhm.
think they just picked up some distributing and licensing rights. That used to be the way they would do things too. They would like, okay, we need more content. They would just go license something.
Yeah,
they wouldn't they wouldn't just let's throw $200 million at some rando project that Zack Snyder has up his butt. They would just go, no, we'll go license these 5 films over the
mhm,
next 2 years and spread them out and focus on the marketing and the branding, and then you would end up with a nice moderate success. You know what I mean? They spent $10 million to make 40. You know what I mean? They spent, you know what I mean? That used to be the model, and now it's just chaos. So
it is absolute
yeah,
chaos. Yeah, reward the good things. That's
yeah,
and then we will get good things come out. Or A24 is a great example. They came out of nowhere, and then
yeah.
I mean they still put out like I saw the TV Glow. That movie was stupid. I didn't
Which
like it.
one?
I saw the TV Glow. It
I
came
don't
out
know what that
earlier
is.
this year. It's
Yeah,
silly,
I,
but
I
then
skipped it.
you get something like Talk to Me, which like a lot of people I know are just like, "Oh, I don't get why this is so special," but it's actually a really good look at how a teenager would deal and handle with grief and loss in a
Hmm.
supernatural way, right? And it's it's not the most unique idea, but the point is that it's an idea that's executed well. And sometimes that's all you need for a movie. You don't need to
Yeah,
reinvent the wheel. Just do something good. That's it.
yeah. That one in I think Blumhouse is like a half and half too. Like they get it right sometimes, they don't get it right other
Oh,
times.
I hate everything Blumhouse puts
Oh
out.
yeah, I don't hate everything. I don't necessarily like everything. I think that there's a lot of execution issues. Jason is really a stranger. I meant to talk to you about him too. We just didn't. We have so much other stuff to talk about. We almost could do a culture conversation. Like, what is with Jason Blum? He dresses like a weirdo. He kind of acts really strange, and I'm like, is Jason the problem? Is Mrs. Blum the problem? I don't. I just there's a
I think Blumhouse is a huge problem, and I
yeah.
get that they generate some pretty nice revenue for Universal, but I Jason Blumhouse is him and Mike Flanagan. I think they are plagues on modern horror. I really
Hmm,
do.
all right, fair enough.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we will end with that because that would be a great way to pick up next because we do have Wolfman coming relatively soon, so we could talk about that next time or something like
Mhm.
that because the
Mhm.
plague's on the Blumhouse plague. So, well, Vex, thanks for talking Alien with me again and hanging out as always. Always great to chat with you.
My pleasure.
Take care, everybody. Talk hard. Be blessed. Till next time. I am Pops.
Thank you for tuning